and I'll try to, okay.
Here, I got two of them. Because I have to edit me a name into my video. Because my stuff turned out wrong. Jeff's out. Something like that.
Let me tell you the things.
I'd like to call the regular board meeting of the North Market Board of Trustees to order. It has been, the motion is required by law. There is a quorum established. Board member Jeff Martin and Kyle Costin couldn't make it this evening. So at this time, I'd like to call on Brother Chad Robinson, the youth pastor of Morrow Baptist Church, to lead with the invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Lord God, I just want to say thank you, Lord, for the opportunity, Lord, just to come to my school and just say a prayer tonight, Lord. I want to thank you for these men and women that stand before me. God, I just pray, God, that you just wrap your arms around them. God, for this meeting, Lord, for this new school year that's about to start. God, I just pray, God, that your will be done in this meeting tonight, God. That you would just watch over these men and women, Lord, as they make decisions for this school, for the new year, Lord, that's about to start this coming Thursday. God, I pray for safety for them. I pray safety for our students. God, I just pray, God, that you just wrap your arms around this building, around these facilities, God. And, Lord, that your protection will be upon each door and each situation that goes on this year, Lord. And God, it'll just be a great year, Lord. Looking forward to it. And just once again, I just want to say thank you, God, for these men and women that are here tonight, Lord. Give their time, God, for my three kids, and I just want to say thank you for that. And once again, I just pray, God, that you'll just bless, and you'll take care of this school. Your will be done, and God, things will just be great this year, great school year, Lord. And once again, I just want to say thank you, and we just ask your blessings upon this meeting, God. We ask these things in your name, Lord. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thanks, Brother Chad. Thank you. Welcome here, y'all. Takes us down to item 3, public hearing on North Miami tax rate, compensatory education fund. So,
Okay, on the tax rate for a public hearing, again, we have our certified values in. The tax rate is staying at $1.04. But I will open up the floor for any comments, if anybody has questions about the tax rate or that ordinance.
anyone here to speak? Anyone here to speak? Being none, we'll close it.
Well, we got one more part of it. We also have to have a public hearing for compensatory education funding. But Dr. Chapman did everything.
Okay. The state compensatory education program is a supplement to the regular funds that are spent on all core or electives or anything. So what state compensatory is for students who may be failing or a class or STAR test or any of those things. So this extra money is set forth by the state to make sure that we're taking care of our kids who are in the most at-risk situations. What you can see on your paper is the total that we receive is $1,610,122. We are required to spend a minimum of 52% on the defined programs. You can see how we spend this on salaries, tutorials, and supplies, and how that's broken up between campuses. We also spend it on alternative school and summer school. So for total actual expenditures this year at $933,339, we actually spent 58%. So we spent over the required amount, which is not a bad thing. It's good for kids, and we're doing what's best for kids by spending the money on them. So any questions? Goes back into general fund.
So we actually get this much, the
Yes,
full
ma'am.
amount, and then we spend it. Now, what can it be spent on? Anything, the money that's left?
Yes. Program intent, though, is to make sure you're spending it on the at-risk kids first. That's what the criteria is, at least 52%. We actually went over because of the need, but the rest goes back to the fund.
How do we break these campuses down? I noticed, like Parker, Higgins, Everett, showing no tutorials, no supplies being needed. How do they determine that?
Sometimes it's based on what they request, but also the percentage of at-risk students they have. If they did not, if the campus chose not to have tutorials, then they did not request the funding. So it comes down to the principal and what they feel like their campus needs are.
That's why there's so much difference right there.
Yes, sir.
So when they pay so much an hour for tutorials after school, the money's coming from here?
Yes, ma'am. As it's there to take care of the teachers who want to, and for our students who need the after-school extra time.
Okay, so we see this money in our budget, tutorials and blah, 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 and all that. So we budget it, but the money's coming from here.
Yes, ma'am.
If they're at-risk student.
If only for
It's
at-risk.
paid
They
with state
have
law.
to be identified at risk. They have to be one of the 13.
If a regular
indicators.
student goes to tutorials, then they're paid out of the general
The
ed.
general budget. Yeah.
Only at-risk students.
So this only reflects those students who meet the 13 criteria for an at-risk student as defined by federal.
Well, we got $1 million to spend on.
But if you'll notice, a big portion of that is in salaries and then the alternative school campus. So that's where the majority of that is spent. And those are the teachers who specifically are meeting the needs of the at-risk students.
How are we paying these teachers? Extra? I mean,
No,
supplement?
that's their
No,
salary.
that's
It's
their
their
salary.
intervention. The
So this-
intervention
so their
teacher's
total
salary.
comes out.
Exactly, which means it doesn't come out of local.
We don't have anyone at the high school doing this.
We don't have anybody at the high school.
No, because we don't offer any intervention classes. We don't have any pull-out intervention classes at
Which
the high
is
school
where that
level.
funding comes from.
So we don't have any pull-out for ESL or dyslexia or?
These are
That's
only
not-
at risk.
that's
They
not
have
this
to be coded
criteria.
at risk.
Okay, they're not at risk?
No.
They're not defined at risk according to the 13 criteria in the federal government. They have their own section of funding that I'm sure will be coming out in a different presentation. We have a Title III and Title IV.
Okay.
We'll be reviewing on that. So yes. Good questions, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Anything else? Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Have anybody public comment? No one signed up for public comment. Let's move us on down to item number 5, consent agenda. Everyone had a chance to look over.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Page 7, actual discussion items. Oh, I don't think I'm in the right place. Yep, on the meetings, Monday, July the 16th.
Yeah, we're gonna have to separate them out.
That's fine. Yeah.
We'll have to separate them all out, like that.
What?
There's a question about the
Minutes.
minutes or any of the agenda, consent
Yes,
agenda,
we
we have to
can.
pull that item out and discuss it.
Yes.
So we're gonna pull
July the 16th,
minutes. Okay.
minutes.
July 16th.
Yes, sir.
that's actually on page 7. Action and discussion items. Is that a question? It's under item 5. Over there, you ready? Where Kristen, we talked about last time, looking into the bereavement days for the employees, and that we were gonna look into it, or is that something that noticed it was on there tonight, is that something we got later? No, it's under. Is it, oh, because I missed it. That's fine, that's fine. That's fine. I didn't see anything about bereavement, I'm not. Okay.
Motion approved.
Have a motion by Mr. Stone, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Daughtry, any further discussion? Yeah, I did.
That's just in the minute, we're just doing minutes.
Yeah, I'm good with the minutes, I'm for the next one. Yeah. All those in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Item 8, 5-8. It's item D. I have a check question. The check on page 17. The check for the field treatments, is that for what we're doing on the football field right this minute?
That is for just an as-needed basis to get us ready for right now. I believe there was some spring stuff that had to be done. That was, I mean, I want to say like at the beginning of July, and some of that stuff are taking place. So this was just an as-needed service is what that was.
But this is not part of the contract and stuff.
Part of the
We're
contract
doing
tonight.
this before we get to the contract.
Yes, I mean, that would have already been taking place, but I mean, some of this routine stuff that would have taken place, and that would be what would be approved tonight.
Okay. This is stuff that would be a part of that contract normally. This right here.
Some of it could be, yes. And this is part of, Rick, correct me if I'm wrong, as far as some of the stuff, Pro Turf, the spraying, what are some of the other things specifically that they've done in the month they did, like back at the beginning of July, that may not necessarily have been associated with the football field?
Spray for armyworms and pre-emerge. It's our normal, we do it every year in July. At certain stages through the year, we do certain sprays, like for armyworms, pre-emerge, and next be personal emerge in the fall. And we'll see. So it was July, about the time we had to do that first stage of what Randy normally does. Is what we're done in July this year. That's outside of the repair work that we've done to the football field.
That's the question.
Yes, sir, it's outside of that. In his normal year, he's under contract, so he gets a payment every month. And he stays on schedule, because he's got a schedule he does. And certain things at certain times of the year has to be done. If we do it too late, then we don't get the full effect of it.
Sure. Are we pre-emerging, we say that, and I understand what pre-emerging is that,
To keep the weeds.
yeah, I understand what we're doing, are we talking about baseball, softball field, or are we talking about grounds?
Well, we're talking about football field, baseball field, and softball field.
Okay. What, can I'll do that when we get there. I'm good.
Okay. That's 5B. Have a motion, 5B. Motion by Mr. Dave,
I'll say.
second by Mr. Richard, any further discussion? If none, all those in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Takes down to 5C, approval of
Hazard Policy Update 111.
I think the majority of this update is legal. Policy updates, it's just a standard.
Anybody have any questions about that on here?
It was all, that was all, the way I read that, that was all stuff we had.
Yes, I mean, there are options that we have, we can adapt some of our local stuff.
Got a motion, Mr. Trammell, have a second, from Mr. Richardson, any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor? Motion carried 5-0, thank you. Takes us down to item 6, action discussion item 6A, discussion only on Mars Food Safety.
So again, at the end of July, we had all the administrators trained in ALICE training. Spent a day doing that. The Officer Bowes, and I don't know, Mr. Brown's been helping some this week. They've been going to campus, different campuses, and training those campuses on the ALICE kind of philosophy as well. And we kind of shared a little bit of that on Friday when we met with the staff and convocation, just as far as how we're training that kind of mindset, philosophy, how we handle safety on the campuses if an active shooter or evil were to enter your building, and how you react and respond and that stuff. Really, that's where we are as far as training and stuff goes right now. I don't know how far you guys got, maybe.
I got 3 campuses done today. Have one more Wednesday, and then one more after that. We're done.
Dr. Adams, we're also updating our emergency procedures with ALICE included in that, since it contradicts a lot of our paperwork on that, so it'll be included. Carla's working on that, we should be done in about a week.
Okay, 6B, transportation needs.
All right, so looking at our transportation issue right now, we are struggling a little bit with drivers having the ability to go some other places and make a little extra money. We talked about earlier in the summer about trying to do a used bus and budgeting around $60,000 for that used bus. So in talking with Clint, and talking with Tammy Crutcher, we think it may be a better solution right now to use some of that money to maybe put towards some stipends for our bus drivers to get some in the door and to also help retain some of our drivers as well. What we're looking at is possibly a $1,200 stipend for those drivers that do an AM and a PM route, and then a $400 stipend for those that did an AM route or a PM route. So that's where we are with our drivers right now. We'd also talk about possibly using the remainder of that money as far as possibly purchasing a couple of vehicles, whether that be a sedan, whether that be a Suburban, whether that could constitute possibly a couple of used vehicles, maybe get a Suburban or a sedan. But just a conversation we'll have right now for tonight, but definitely discussion. So take your thoughts on that.
What happens, I thought we already ordered this bus.
Well, there were some specs. Correct me if I'm wrong, Clint.
The board, if you'll give me just a second, yes, sir. We're dealing with a company out of Oklahoma, and we're in Texas. And they sell to a lot of Texas schools, and I made it specifically known that we needed it to be Texas specs, because we have a different specs than the federal government. We have to have laminated windows. So we got the bid back, we were going through it, it was all good to go. And then speaking to some directors throughout the state, they said, you might want to check and make sure they meet your Texas specs, because sometimes they try to slip it by you. So I did, I asked the question, because they have limited windows. Because it was a lease bus, they were pulling it out of a lease and going to go through it and sell it to us at that price. When we have to put laminate glass on it, he said it'd be at $10,000. I said, well, we need it to be Texas specs from the beginning. You knew that. So we kind of got to run around with that situation. So I talked to Dr. Adams, and we just stopped it at that point. We didn't want to spend any more money on a used bus, because now you're speaking of $70,000, possibly $72,000 probably. For a 2-year-old bus, and that's not the direction we needed to go at this point. We need buses. We need buses very bad.
We started out trying to get through.
Yeah. Our Suburbans, 150,000 plus on all 4 of them. And so we're needing, we're sending a lot of teachers, kids on weekends. Our vans are 120, I believe. One of them has 120, 125, and then I think the other one has about 105. So we thought best with the money, we need drivers. Right now, we're still 2 drivers short for Thursday. I don't have any drivers. I've talked to everybody, went today 2 or 3 times. We have had 2 drivers that we hired. They since called me and told me they were going to another district as far as money. And,
Do we know what our pay is comparable to the ones across town?
yes, sir. I just heard today that Paris just put in for a $2,000 stipend for their staff if they don't miss a day for their bus drivers. So if they drive every day, they get an extra $2,000 on top. Paris is a little unique compared to us because they can pay drivers more overall because they have double routes.
Like we used to do.
No, we've never had a double route at North Lamar.
Well, let me ask this question. The board before I came on the board meeting before I came on the board June 20th last year, we were going through all of this and redoing our pay and putting our pay down. I did a little question and found out that according to what I hear from the other districts around us, our high pay for a day is around $62 to $65 a day. That's what I was told. And everybody else is saying that's on the low schedule of what they pay.
Our lowest route,
Now, what is our highest route?
our highest route,
What I hear is we're way on the bottom end of the pay scale for bus drivers.
And we are. There's no doubt about that.
But I thought we revamped that last year so we wouldn't be.
we revamped it so it'd be fair. That's what Mr.
Okay.
Denard did the year before. And he
Year
revamped
before?
it
Okay.
because we had some drivers that was making, I would say $27 an hour because their route was only, a PM route might be an hour and 20 minutes. And so, they were getting $9,000 over the year, so it worked out about 27. And then we had another driver, one of my furthest routes, bus 28, he only got paid $6,600, I believe it was. So you figure his money, and he was making about $8 to $9 an hour. So he went in with a flat rate of 15. This year, we did ask for a pay raise for our bus drivers. We asked for a step raise also, but due to budget crunches and our money that we have here at the district, we weren't able to do that. We wanted to do this last year with an incentive, like a safety incentive, kind of like what we're wanting to do now. We're still behind. Chisholm, I heard, makes probably about $700 more than the same route that we have. Prairie Land, they're a little unique, and Chisholm a little unique because, they only have 8 routes or 10 routes. They don't have 32 like we do.
But that's what we compete against.
Yeah, that's what we compete against, we have.
And all this happened, I won't say this, all this happened before you
Yes,
took over.
yes. And we've been working on it, and I gave Dr. Adams, I think when he first came on, if I remember correctly, a pay rate for out of state. Where you get into a problem where most people are getting drivers, they're giving their drivers a minimum of 20 to 30 hours. So they're guaranteed that amount of money. That's the districts that don't have a shortage of bus drivers. That's kind of hard for us, because what do you do with that driver for those other 5 to 6 hours? You have to find them something to do. They have midday routes in those districts and things of that nature. That's something that we probably need to move towards. If you have a young family and you're asking them to come to work for 15 hours a week at $15 an hour, that's not enough money to raise them. They can go down the street and work at Atwoods. They'll start them at $10 an hour, and they'll give them 30 to 35 hours a week. That's more money, and that's what they're looking at.
And they don't have, they driving a bus, you got midday, so if they're taking, it doesn't like.
And if they got little kids, what do they do with their little kids? So it's a constant issue. The drivers that we've always had at North Lamar are paraprofessionals, custodians, teachers, trying to make extra money, and then you have a few retired people in the district that won't work, and that's usually it.
I guess my question I'm asking is, it didn't seem like we had near as big an issue before we revamped our pay scale.
It did upset quite a few people.
And I wasn't here, so I'm asking a question. I mean, since you wasn't there. so-
It did upset a lot of people. We were able to work out some things and got them back. I think overall, most of the people were making almost exactly what they did after we did all the pay period for the whole year. I calculated everything up. And we're really, really close to what they made years before. When it was first presented to them, they weren't going to make that. But once we got the hours and they actually saw, plus some of the routes changed last year. We had to combine 3 routes last year, which made some of our routes a little bit longer. So it was able to give those people that needed a few more hours during the week. So instead of working 12 hours, they got 15 or 16 hours.
Because we both know that as an employer, they're not gonna compare apples to apples.
Nope.
Right?
They're gonna look at
So
the
if
bottom
I'm
number.
getting 15, I'm just gonna grab numbers out there. If I'm getting $15 an hour to drive a bus at Northmont, or I go across town to school X and I can get 25 hours an hour to drive,
Right.
they're gonna go to the other place. So what I'm saying is, my question is, because I don't know, what, it seems like to me, and my phone rang off the wall when I first got on the board about the school bus thing. When we were on that pay scale, we weren't having a big bus driver issue. And now, it's, I'm telling you, I go to a ball game and I hear about it.
Yes, sir. You are correct.
So how can we fix, instead of putting lipstick on the pig by doing this,
Right.
how can we fix this so that it's fixed for you, it's fixed for everybody?
So are y'all saying if we go back to the old
I'm
way,
asking.
that'll
Well,
fix the problem?
we are going to go, most of the
Fix
districts,
permanent. I think that's
most of the districts come up with
That's once a year.
most of the districts come up with a daily, an hourly rate, and then they figure it up, and then they give them a flat rate. This is what you're gonna make.
Which
And
is
then if
similar
they
to what
work
we-
over that, they get paid extra, and that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna give them a flat rate of, this is how much money you're gonna make for this route, for this amount of driving time. And then if you work over because you pick up kids, you'll get paid more. And that's helped a lot, I think. At the end of the day, though, it's what am I gonna make at this district compared to what am I gonna make at your district? They don't really care about the extra 10 minutes it's gonna take, they're worried about the bottom dollar.
So you and I would.
$13,000 I'm gonna make here, I'm
Yes.
only gonna make 10 at yours,
Yes.
I'm gonna go where 13 is.
Sure, we gotta be
And
competitive.
at some point, you just have to raise it to where it goes. When we did it, when I did the hourly rate, I bumped it up to start drivers out at 16, and we did a pay increase of 20 cents every year to a top out of 20. That made our budget, I wanna say almost $100,000 more with the current staff that we have,
Yeah, I can understand
which is quite a bit of money.
that. I understand, sure.
I think that's the market rate. I mean, for a CDL driver,
That's, in some districts, they go all the way up to 23, 24.
we just had to bump up ours in March from 18 to 20 to 22.
Right.
And it's just what's it,
That's
it's
just
just a
what it is.
commodity right now.
Right.
CDL license is a valuable.
Very valuable. And it's hard to get. I mean, I've had a couple of teachers try to get it, and they weren't able to
Do
attain
we
it.
help them financially get that CDL license?
We have not been able to do that because we don't have that in our budget. Normally, what I do is once they pass their test, their written test, then we assist them with training in the district. We pay for their physical and their bus certification class that they must take. We do pay for all of that. I wouldn't suggest going and paying for the driver's license yet until they
Right.
sign. Some districts do signing bonuses just like CDL drivers do in the area. You know, you see signing bonuses. Kyle Costman puts one in all the time.
So, yesterday.
Yeah, you know. So, you know, you look at somebody and, you know, they work for them 6 months, they're getting $2,000 extra or $3,000 extra. So we're competing against everybody, just not the school district.
No, I agree, and that's what I'm asking. What I'm asking is though, we've been battling this thing for about a year.
Mhm.
All I'm looking for is how do we fix this? First, and then my next question is, are we gonna give this as a one-time stipend?
This will be on a per semester stipend, we'll split it out. It's Christmas, January actually what will be paid is what we're looking at, and in June. So it can help them out at Christmas time and then it can help them on vacation.
What if I get my stipend and I drive 2 more weeks and then I quit?
Well, you only get half of it, so you'd only get 600, you wouldn't get your
That's fine.
spring.
When are we gonna pay it?
It'd be in January, after the semester,
They'll get 400 of us.
600 for the full-time drivers. That means AM, PM. If they're just an AM driver, they would be getting 200.
and then in June, they get another 200 if they stay with us. And it'd only be people that are driving the full-time. Ms. White and I will work out some of the details to make sure that it's fair. I would like to see it tied to safety, making sure drivers are, accident-free and things
Give
like
them a
that.
stipend based on something.
Yes.
Not just because they're a bus driver.
Not just because they're a bus driver. This year, tied to safety, but, most of our drivers are pretty safe. We don't have any accidents. If we do, they're small. So it just helped those little things, I think last year we only had one
Right.
accident. or a
Didn't
little
cover
bit.
guardrails.
Yep.
And again, this is not a cure-all to our problem.
No, and that's what I'm
This
asking.
is- This is just an opportunity to do something, because at the end of the day, we don't have an extra $100,000 to play with.
Well,
Why do you think the stipend method is better than just raising the salaries of the bus drivers?
Well, for right now, kind of our thinking is where we are financially. If I bump your salary as a teacher, let's say I bump your salary up $1,000 a year, well, that's in place from now on.
Well, isn't that what we're gonna have to do, to have bus drivers?
Well, it may be. If we want to put it in their salary, we can do that. But, at the end of the day, we've got to have that money available.
Another thing that hit us was we started calculating overtime this last year, and probably about half our drivers are hourly paid. So they're pushing,
what's that? If
37.
you're a bus driver, is that right, if they're on hourly pay?
Do what, sir?
If they're on hourly pay, we're talking about a strictly bus driver.
No, sir. We're talking about a paraprofessional, custodian,
Right.
a maintenance worker. Those are all hourly paid.
Gotcha.
So they hit the 40-hour mark by Thursday mid-afternoon, so we're starting to pay them overtime. And that means they're making a whole lot more than just $15 an hour. Some of our drivers make very well, like I said. Other teachers, on the other hand, don't. They're not an hourly pay, so they just get the flat 15.
Depends on what they're doing along with you.
Yes, sir. And we don't know that. Tomorrow it may change. Right now, it's almost like it was last year. It's pretty close. We didn't know where we would be at the end of the year. We didn't have a clue. So, we went through and looked at everybody's pay, and I've got it all on a spreadsheet so we can see how much money we spent on overtime, and it was quite a bit of money that we weren't ready for. We had the money in there, but these are things, if you start bumping, say, $20, because I have several drivers that's been driving for 20-plus years, so they get 20, then you do the overtime on it, and that's, it's a large amount of money that can happen very quick. Now, for your teachers, it's great. It helps them. We have a lot of teachers, Ms. Brown Hall and a few others that have been driving for many years. And they're getting paid for a new, same as a guy that just come off the street first time ever driving. So, we need to get a step in there, but like Dr. Adams, we have a budget. And it's tough.
So
to
we
do
don't
all
have
this.
steps for people that are loyal and been here forever and ever, because I had one ask me about this. We don't have steps for these people that have been, like you said, 15, 20, 25 years. They're just like the first day guy.
To my knowledge, we have never had a step raise
For-
for bus drivers. The last raise they received, besides redoing the 15, was about 12 years previous to this. So there's never been a step here at all in all the years that I've known. And I kind of ask people that's been driving for 20-plus years, to kind of get some input, know what they've been through, know where they are, Have one driver, she's 21 years, 22, and she's making about the same as she did back then. Now, I don't know how much longer she's driving. That all plays in effect now. Her route may be only an hour and a half now, and she might have been driving 2.5 years ago, when she first started. So you kind of got to take that with a grain of salt. But the hourly pay, when you look at it long run, it does work out, and it is fair. And you do have an opportunity to make more money if you work more. In previous years, they didn't have that. If they said $6,000, they got paid $6,000, and if they drove more than that, they got $6,000. That was all of it.
Help me understand, because maybe I'm wrong, okay? But we didn't have bus driver problems back then. We have bus driver problems now.
There's two things that changed that. 10 years ago, or I'll use me as an example. 17 years ago, when I came to work for the school district, I was an ag teacher. On that hallway, there was one teacher that I remember that didn't have a CEO. On that hallway now, There's one teacher that has a CDL. Administrators used to have CDLs.
So not as many
Coaches.
people in the pool to pull from.
No, sir. We're losing them every year, more and more and more. Used to, when a beginning teacher would come on board, you know, they would pick up extra duties. And she was saying, you know, the tutorials, driving the bus, doing whatever to make a little extra money. It seems like nowadays, teachers don't do that as often. The test, you know, when I took my test.
CDLs are harder to get now.
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
much harder.
18 years ago, when I took my bus certification test, it was pretty easy, you know. I didn't have to study a whole lot to get it. I've been a CDL driver, so I knew about it, but I mean, I didn't really study. I just went up there, took the test, and then got in the bus, did pre-trip, and was gone. And last year, I had 3 drivers fail the CDL test. They wanted to be drivers. So, that's an
They used
issue.
to require us to be CDL drivers. We
Yes,
don't
ma'am.
do that anymore.
At this point, we're not requiring it. I think that's something that Dr. Adams and I have been kind of discussing. And then also, Rick has put in a suggestion that we may start doing that for maintenance workers and things like that, trying to get people
Well, I was talking about
approved.
coaches, every coach had to drive.
Yeah.
Unless you had a medical reason not to, you got a CDL to drive the bus. That included me.
And we've lost some teachers in the last few years that were bus drivers for us. They've
Our
retired.
teachers are coming back, they're not, I hear. So the pool's smarter to pull from, and we're on the low end of the pay scale.
Yep.
So that's exactly why we're having trouble getting.
We got the perfect storm. Yes, sir. And it's not getting any better.
Can I go back to the bus thing now too? Now that we're on the driver thing? When we were going through budget, we were talking about, we were trying to budget for 3 new, we wanted to budget for 3 new buses. We needed them really bad, right? And we get through the deal, we couldn't, so hey, but we can get one. Our thought process was, and I remember actually, I looked through that whole list of buses. We could get one and we were gonna try to budget at least one every year for the, so be it, that's what we talked about, right? And then now, we're not gonna get a bus at all. Somebody's gonna have to make me understand that.
As we look at the situation, I mean, what's more important right now, is it having people that drive those buses or having one that sits in the lot? And that's kind of where we are right now in the process.
But when we were going through budget, the buses were in such bad shape, we better get one, because we had 3 or 4 that don't fall apart because they had so many miles on them.
And I'm not saying that problem still doesn't exist.
I guess that's where I'm trying to scratch my head here. I mean, to me, I'm gonna be where I swear that sounds like to me. We've had a problem ever since we redid the pay. That was just before you. We've had considerable bus driver issues ever since. To me, we need to restart, we go back, look at that, and get a plan together, some way, somehow going forward, that we're at least comfortable. I can tell you the phone calls I make, we're not even in the ballgame paying bus drivers. Our highest end bus drivers, this is what other schools are telling me, our highest end bus drivers make as much as their low end bus drivers make. That we're that far out of kilter. Now, I don't know that to be true. I just asked why, and let me say this. You can watch on the news, I think it was not before last, Dallas is 100 bus drivers short.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, they just took theirs back in relay law, right? But
They
they're
have a few more
100
than
bus
we do.
drivers short. Paris is saying their bus drivers short, Chisholm's bus drivers short. I mean, everybody that you talk to is bus driver short, I get it. But all I'm saying is, and I don't understand because I don't have the information prior to, but before we did this, we didn't have a big bus driver problem. And we've had one ever since.
I think we've had a bus driver problem in previous, but it hasn't been as bad as the last couple of years.
So to me, that means we need to look at what we're doing, and instead of putting a Band-Aid on it, let's fix it. That's all I'm asking, and I don't know what the answer is, but I'm asking to find out.
Well, I just like to say that we put money in certain areas where maybe this is where we need to be putting the money from the
Yeah.
bottom up. We need to start at the bottom with our raises and our money and our supplements or whatever we're gonna call it, and start with them and get our kids to school instead of worrying about all this stuff up here that doesn't even deal with kids.
And that's an option we can do. I mean, that would scratch be purchasing any type of vehicle and using that $60,000 to.
Do we need these vans? I mean,
I'm still thinking
Mine,
we need a
I
bus.
mean, these vehicles get used a lot.
I think we
I
need to
don't-
get kids to school.
I still think we need a bus.
we need a lot. Let's just be
Well,
honest
we
with
need
you.
to put our
Everybody knows
priorities
in this
in where
room, you know, there's more
priorities
than
are
one
with the
need that we
kids.
have.
Let
We
me ask
need
you
bus
this.
drivers very bad. I think doing what Dr. Adams and I, what we talked about the other day, Ms. White, doing a little bit right now and looking, we've already talked about during this year, we're gonna keep track of it and then try to gain a plan for more like January to come back to you with a supplement pay. And I'll have some new numbers for you. The
So
numbers
we're
that I
gonna do this?
received prior was Paris. I kinda knew where Paris, and like I said, it's hard to compare us to Paris because they have more hours than we do for the bus drivers. So at the bottom line, it's difficult.
The
But we-
trips are not as far.
Why don't they just round town?
buses, I just had to kill a route
We can't
today.
compare to Paris, because our trips are not as far. I've said on that, too. I know what that's about.
Right. Well, they do the double routes and we had Chris Washington, he was an employee here.
Sure.
He was having some medical issues and was not able to do the custodial work and drive a bus, so he spoke to Paris and he went over there. After he went over there, he found out that he would not be making per hour what they told him.
Right.
We were paying him, and he was wanting to come back to us, but due to health issues, he was not able to do that. And he had to quit altogether and go on disability, but he basically said that y'all are real close. But he was getting more hours over there. So at the bottom, that bottom number, yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
So you said something about doing this now and coming back in January for what kind of pay?
Giving you back probably doing what we did originally in the spring, was with step raises and showing y'all that, and how much that would affect the budget. And then y'all can start that discussion and we can get you information so you can make a good decision with Dr. Adams.
How many bus drivers would get, $1,200? I mean, what numbers are we talking about here? I mean, how many thousands of dollars is this gonna be?
It will be close to what we figured the other day.
Paris ISD is reporting an average pay of $16.70 an hour, according to TASB HR.
I'm just telling you what their transportation director told me Saturday, that he said we were paying about $60. He said, from what I can tell by talking to your bus drivers, you're paying about $60 to $65 on the high end of your bus. He said, that's on the low end of ours.
About 28 as far as the AM, PMs, and then we have several drivers that are just AM.
So you don't have any thousands of dollars. I'm just thinking, I mean, we're spending thousands and thousands of dollars, which I totally agree, we need to pay them. Is it better to do it through supplements, or is it better to just raise their pay?
I think right now it'd be better to do it by supplements because of the overtime route. We do not know where it would end up in the long run. And what we may say budgeted for $15,000, that's pretty roughly where it's gonna be when we're talking about this. But if you did it over the overtime, it might end up being 21 or 22.
40 grand,
Yeah.
somewhere around.
So,
We need to budget people. We need to give them more, whatever.
Well, and I understand where Dr. Adams is coming from. I mean, the budget is, I mean, I get it, I understand, and this is before you. But to me, we give them a stipend this year, we're gonna come right back and we're right back in the same problem. We didn't fix nothing. Well, if we're gonna look into fixing something, first of all, how much money did we save when we made this change? Anybody know? You know?
I have that in the office. I have that on Brandon's drive. I can bring, I don't know that number.
I'd really like to know that number before I did anything. How much money did we save from what we were doing if we didn't have a bus driver problem? Because I'm just, my personal opinion, mine only, that's when the problem happened, right there.
How, Clint, how satisfied or unsatisfied were our drivers after a year on that system?
some of them were very satisfied because the people that were making the 6,000 or 6,200 that was driving more than the one making 9,000, they're pretty satisfied. Some of them were still a little agitated, but I think they saw it. They were more agitated because we had to do it over a month and they didn't get paid during the summer, which we're changing that where they do get paid during the summer.
So what we're saying here right now is, or I think I'm saying, we need to spend money on bus drivers more than we need to spend money on a bus.
Yes, sir.
Yep, that is a priority right now. From a budgeted standpoint and using that money.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Using that, instead of using $60-something thousand on a bus, use it on, how much was it, about 71? If I remember right.
Okay. You asked the question of how much did we save?
From one to the other, yeah.
Okay. Now, these may be a little bit, I can't say these are exact numbers because I've got one number here that's out of line, so excuse me, but it's gonna be within $7,000 or $8,000. These are bus routes that we had last year. We didn't save any money. We actually paid our bus drivers more last year.
Changing to this system.
Changing this system. So 16, 17, we had, looks like about $170,000. And then in the 17, 18 school year, we had it budgeted for 197, which those weren't true numbers because you throw in the overtime on that and it's even more.
Right.
It was even more. So we're probably looking with the overtime, I would say 20, 15,000, just give or take. So you're looking probably about a $40,000 bump for our bus drivers.
Over the whole package.
Over the whole package, yes, sir. Because like I said, one bus driver, he starts in the morning about 6 o'clock and gets, he's got almost a 2-hour route.
He's happy.
He's happy because he's getting paid what he deserves now.
Sure.
And previous, he was making $6,200, 66, something like that. So, I mean, it's very fair. I've talked to school districts, over 30 school districts throughout the state, transportation directors, and most of them budget this way to come up with a number.
Right.
And because it's easier to budget that way, because you can put in if we have transponder now, I can tell how long the route is, pretty close to where it should be, so I can budget that way.
But until the other ones do it, they're paying more, we're on the bottom end of the spectrum, and we don't get bus drivers.
Right. So we have to come up with some creative thinking. We either have to go to, you asked, what are some suggestions? One suggestion would be pay our bus drivers that are bus drivers only, a minimum of 20 hours. And when they're not driving a bus.
How much money does that run into? The people we're talking about.
Depends on if you do a pay scale, we're talking about years of service, if you factor that in, and some other things. And then when they're not driving buses, are they picking up trash, are they, what are they doing for the district for those other hours? And that's something, yeah, we can look at some of those things. Or give them an opportunity if they want that.
Sure.
So that may be, that's something that I would like to say, let's at least give them a minimum. So if somebody comes in, that's what they're looking at. And then we can compete with Paris over there.
Yeah.
And then I think for our teachers, we may need to look at something for them because they're not getting paid the overtime like our other ones are. But it goes back to what Dr. Adams said. We got to have the money in the budget. We got to find the money. And right now, we don't have that money.
Well, the first thing we got to do to me is we got to get kids to and from school.
Amen.
That's priority number one.
We're doing our best. I would like to direct your answer why we don't need, I'm not going to say we don't need buses. I'm willing to sacrifice buses this year. 2 reasons. I just had to kill a route because I didn't have a driver. So I'll probably have a bus just sitting, So we'll have a spare bus. We had a bus sitting last year for 6 months, bus 68. We used it mainly for activities.
Right.
We still had it available. We repaired a lot of buses last year, not to say tomorrow they won't break down like they did last year at the beginning of school. Last year at the beginning of school, we had a bus break down every day. We're fixing some things in our maintenance department where we can do a little more in-house diagnostics, because that's something that we struggled in, having to outsource that. So Mr. Merritt and I are going to work on that, try to get that fixed where we can save some money and do some things differently. We need drivers.
So the route you took away, does somebody else drive close by that they're picking those kids up? Do we have more that we can do that? Yeah.
Hopefully they'll all fit on the bus.
Okay.
I didn't want to do that, but, Monday morning, or Thursday morning,
When you don't have anybody pick them up.
we got to put buses on, out there to pick up kids. And it may get to a point, I have 2 drivers right now that are working on their CDL that's outside the district. That can, but one of them's, they both passed last week, and their pre-trip driving test is 10-1 and 10-2. 6 weeks away. So, I mean, it's, it takes 2 months to get a CDL
Yeah,
license.
I was gonna say, that's actually
If you
pretty
started
good.
right now, if I told you to start right now, I guarantee it'd take you 2 months. I
If
mean, it's-
everything lines up.
If everything lines up, and like I said, we had 3 people in line to drive and hired 2 of them. One was working on it, and they've all called me and said, I'm either going or I'm not going to do it now. After thinking about it. So, payroll's pretty big, but, I mean, it's not gonna be a quick fix. It's gonna be something that we're gonna have to plan out for several years in the budget and try to, Dr. Adams and Amy Crutcher.
Is there a minimum amount, like, if someone drives 30 minutes, like around here, Stone, Reno, blah, blah, some of that, they still get $15, don't they?
Yes, ma'am. But, well, no, ma'am. They still get paid by the hour. But none of our bus routes are less than an hour now. We had to do away with those routes.
You combine over
Yes.
the year, I'm sure.
Last year, we lost 3 routes, and this year, we're already losing 1. I don't think I can lose any more.
So one last question. How did we arrive at 1,204?
1,200, 400. We were sitting in the office and we came up, Chandra actually made the, we were looking at 12 and 6 or 1,000. I wanted 1,000 last year. I thought it was a fair give for everybody, and she came up with a 12 and a 400, so. it's just-
Basically,
We
with
just kind of
12
pulled
and
it.
400, it somewhat gets close to splitting at 60 and a
Yeah.
half. And that's what
The
we're trying to
30,000.
stay with,
We
stay
want-
around 30 if we possibly could.
And
And the reason for the 1,200, I think the clinic was to try to entice them to do an AM and PM.
Yeah.
PM for those that were only doing one route, that adding that additional money to that, if you're driving both. Because when he looked at it, he's got some great drivers, but they're only driving one route. So we were like, how do we pull them to drive both routes?
It's just a thought, okay? My thought process is that entices the bus drivers we got. What entices somebody to come be a bus driver? Because that's the real issue.
Yes. Well, that's a start.
We can't lose the ones we got. I agree with every part. But we're also trying to get new ones to come and do it.
And I think when, if we move forward with this and it becomes a.
Do we have enough
action
staff
item when
people
they-
that would all of a sudden say, hey, I might want to go back to driving a bus? Is that a finger cross? Oh,
That's a big hope. Be a big answered prayer. I've already talked to a couple of people trying to persuade them to come back, hoping that y'all would, move forward with what we want, and try to entice them a little bit, and, I don't know. I can't
my
answer
thoughts
that.
on that, also, my thoughts on that are, I'm okay, but I think this is something that we really need to look at. We need to get our bus driver situation. Because we didn't have this, my opinion, we didn't have this problem until we rearranged that. I don't know what happened, I don't know where it's at, I don't know what's
Well,
going on.
they didn't like the change, a lot of them didn't like the change, but like Clint said, that sounds fair.
Well, and we're paying more money, I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
That sounds
I-
fair,
you know,
and it makes
I had to
it
do-
even and equal.
I had to do a lot of talking to explain it, and I think after they saw,
But
black
we're
and white.
losing bus drivers, buddy, because they think.
But we gotta raise that too,
Right.
our
We're
standard.
we're
We gotta
still,
raise our standard.
I'm not saying we have this problem fixed, but in-house, I think they finally saw. And most of those drivers that did quit have retired or moved on to other districts or something like that. They're not, we have 1 or 2 that are still in the district, but I think that's an idea. The majority of them, I talked to a few of them coming back, after they quit. Went to them, talked to them one-on-one, did a lot of FaceTime. I always try to do that with our drivers. But like I said, overall, we're down CDL drivers in the district. That's been a big factor.
Do
We've had a lot of
coaches
people.
still have to have CDLs? I mean, do a lot of coaches have CDLs?
We have some are working on
But
it.
not,
Not everybody.
I just like to see this final permanent fix.
Correct.
Not a, to do this, I'm not saying maybe this isn't what we need to do, or maybe we need to do it for a semester, but we need to find a more of a permanent fix for this, because from what I hear, we're the low man of the totem pole. So it's
Well,
gonna
and
be-
we did talk
if
about
the
that in
pool-
our
If the
meeting
pool's already
the other
small,
day.
if you already have a small pool to pull from,
Right.
and you're the low man on the totem pole,
Makes
we
it
have
that
to do
much
without
harder.
something else to pay bus drivers. We need to figure this out. This has lingered on for a year, and this needs to get fixed. Okay.
Any other questions? We bring this up. Discussion on it?
Well, if we want to approve the 1,200 and 400, we approve the next agenda item, which is update the stipend.
Oh, okay.
How much total is that gonna be if we, how much are we gonna spend? Give me a solid number. If we update the stipend list with the 1,200 and 400, how much money is that gonna be?
This first semester, how much would it
Okay.
be?
Would y'all give me just a second?
Yeah.
Sure. No, because you're gonna have a big turnout at the end of the year. You're gonna have to drive if you get sick. Then you can drive so you can pay out. He said we're gonna pay Chandra Transportation.
Sir.
He said we're gonna pay this in January and in June, so that way they can't drive 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, that was the kind of is to give them some incentive. Yeah, once they've done and it's kind of like, thank you for driving the semester, here you go.
Yeah, we're not gonna
Thank
give
you
them
for
12
driving the
months and then hold
semester,
that
here
drive.
you go.
We're gonna tell them that now, though.
Yes.
Follow what I'm saying?
I don't think they'd rather have that divided up on their tax. And have the stipend divided up every month.
$100 a month or?
Well, yeah.
Well, I think our worry with that was we would lose them, and that's kind of a, I think with originally when Clint brought it, it was kind of as a retention bonus to retain them, so it gives them that.
Better wait till December.
And I'm cool with retaining, but we gotta get some new ones.
Well, and I think for us, it was like, okay, then in the spring, maybe we've got more kids back, maybe our budget looks better, maybe we can kind of rework.
You don't think?
Because, I mean, he did a great job of presenting some numbers, and it was, as you know, where the budget was, it was like, oh my gosh, how do we do that? And so I think for him, it's trying to reward the ones he has, but then it, like I said, entice those that are driving just one route to drive 2 routes, and then that gives him additional staff.
If you get, Clint, I know you're bigger.
Yes,
If you
sir.
get 3 or 4 or 5 people to take on 2 routes instead of just one, that help quite a bit.
Not giving any
4 or
stipend.
5 to take on 2. Problem, we have plenty of AM drivers. Normally I can get AM drivers pretty easy. It's the PM routes that we're struggling with.
Because of shift work, maybe?
Well, coaches,
Yeah.
teachers don't
Shift
want
work.
to, don't want to do things, in the afternoons, they want off. They have other things, that's what I'm looking into right now. I don't drive an AM route last year, well, I did a little bit last year, about half a year. Right now, looks like I'm not gonna have to drive an AM route this year, but I drive a PM route every day. Last year I did it every day.
I'd say every day last year.
Every day. I took one day, I think, off, that was it. Jake Merritt, he drives an AM and a PM route, he needs to be working on buses so we can save money. We, repair them a lot cheaper, but, he drives every morning, every afternoon. And he's been doing that for
Couple of years.
6, 7 years, for quite a while.
It's more important to, in the shop than he is driving a bus.
Yep.
How much did you get the number?
Don't quote me on this, but it's gonna be $32,400.
Roughly. And
Yeah.
it depends on a lot of factors.
Yeah, well, I've made a lot of adjustments today. I've done a lot of scribbling because I've killed a route and I'm moving a lot of people around to try to make sure I can cover everything. And there's 1 or 2 people that are driving that probably won't get that, because I'm not counting 59 because I don't have a driver for it. And if they're just a sub driver, they wouldn't get that money. Now, last year, I don't know if you know this, but I promised sub drivers $20 a day per trip, period. So to try to entice people to help with subs, and that did. The drivers I spoke to, they love that because, they're new to a route, don't know it. And if it's just an hour route, they should have got 15, but, it's not really worth their time, but 20 is. One day I would like to bump it up to 22 or 25, but I don't want them to be doing that. I don't want them to be driving the route. So until we get a bus driver where we want.
Until we get a permanent bus driver.
Yes. Then we can do some things like that. years past, we had a couple of drivers that just sat, and we paid them just to sit, and when we needed them, they were available. That's been probably 10 years ago. What does that tell you?
I guess where I'm good, and I appreciate y'all's work. All I'm just saying is, I
We
think
need to fix it.
we need to fix it. We need to find a permanent
If
fix.
there's something funny, that's where you go.
No, I'm not saying.
Right, it's a national problem. I mean, it's a national problem. It's a national problem. It's not a Texas problem, it's not a Warren County problem, it's not a Paris problem. And it's a big headache and it's a big problem for Northmore right now, but it's a national problem. Yeah.
All right. Any no further discussion on 6B, we'll take down to 6C, consideration approval of 2018-19 update stipend bill.
Which is that, that's what we're talking
So
about.
that's what, this would be the only update that was 1,200.
I'll make a motion that we accept it.
Have a motion by Mr. Richardson, seconded by Mr. Stone. Any further discussion? If none, all those in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Takes us down to 6D, consideration approval addition of secure entrances in Stone and the high school. Dr. Adams?
Okay, so we are looking at the possibility of adding these entrances at these two secondary campuses with the high school campus here. Basically, what would happen is we would construct a wall from about the middle of these glass doors. And it would come out and it would go across to the front of the high school door there. As people came into the high school, there would be a sliding window right there where they would have access to visit with somebody in the office, and then those people could either buzz them into the office or buzz them into the main campus, but they would not have access to the main campus unless they were allowed in.
But aren't these doors always open? Like this down at
These doors would be open, but there would be these two on this end would be locked. And so those two on that
But
end.
down there at the parking lot, they remain open all the time.
Well, I mean, these down here are locked. I mean,
What
there's,
about all these?
those are, except during the lunchtime, we,
They're as locked as we, check them.
But people that
Know that
we
raise.
don't know are supposed to come this way, aren't they?
Do what?
I mean, anybody off the
I
street.
mean, a visitor or somebody should come through this
here
door
and
right
check
here.
in. We're talking about when people come in to check in, they should be coming through here.
Do what?
Those back doors back here by the band hall and the gym and all that, that looks
Yeah,
open
that's
half the
another,
time.
yes, another one on the list. Yes.
If we don't fix that, it doesn't matter what we do.
That's what
They
I'm
don't come in the
saying.
back door.
I came up today from our,
When the kids come in and out of that one, going from athletics and all that, so how you gonna lock it down?
Well, I mean, going out, I mean, we can't stop any of them going out, any of them.
No, but they come in too. I mean, I've seen them all hours of the day.
getting them to quit propping the door up there.
Yeah.
So you're talking about from that, where's the wall going?
Basically from the office door, right
That
there, this
silver
gray
one?
door.
Okay, yeah.
You come out this way,
Mhm.
about halfway, and then it hits the middle of these glass doors right
You
here.
go through the first two doors, so it's like a
There's two
L there.
rooms. Yes.
I got you.
So, I mean, you still have the ability to get out. You know, even there would be doors on that
That's
wall.
why these two would be locked and those two down there would be open. Those two. Where we gonna, where's this gonna come out of the budget?
So there is about 600,000 that we will put into fund balance. So from the 17-18 school year, there will be money that will be put into fund balance. And so it would have to come from taking out of fund balance to go. I mean, this is obviously not a budgeted.
No, it's
not a
really-
budgeted
Right.
item.
Where did the 600,000?
Just from, yeah, I mean, that was some stuff that was sent several weeks ago.
Could be that I didn't get it. And
How do we not see that? How do we not, I mean, I
It
don't,
was a credit amount, Tammy,
Right.
I mean, we went to that budget with a fine tooth comb, how do we not?
it was,
see-
it's
Well, but
been
this
added
is
since then.
completely, that has nothing to do with
That's
this
a-
year's budget.
Has nothing to do with.
So nobody knew that money was still there?
Well, I mean, there's some stuff from salaries and stuff that didn't get spent. I mean, there's stuff from,
That's a lot
as
of
the
money.
year-end budget ends
Leftover.
up and stuff.
Yeah.
leftover money.
That's
Correct.
a
Now,
lot.
some of that money is also from, some of it is, from the Essent deal that took place several years ago.
Mhm.
There's some money left, so it wasn't just like
Yeah.
here's 600 grand in the budget that wasn't used. I mean, there were some other stipulations that are adding to that.
So,
That's a lot of money though.
and then we're gonna take these two
Can't buy
things.
buses.
That's fixing to be my next question.
Okay.
Are any bus?
Got a need.
We have to understand though that, let's say, I'm gonna use 600, okay? That 600,000 is not something that's gonna happen every year. That's just something that essentially, to be honest with you, we probably need to put a lot of that as much as we can, in my opinion, back in the general fund. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with what we're talking about right here. But we don't, just because we got that, we need to start putting it back back in the general fund, as much as we can.
That's where you're doing with,
So,
that's what you're doing with, right? It's going to
yes,
fund
this
balance.
goes back into the, it'll go into fund balance.
Fund balance, still the general fund.
Yeah, it won't go to general fund.
Fund balance. I said the wrong word, just one point. I think that I'm, especially this one here, I'm all for this, but I just say this, we gotta come up with a plan to keep the rest of the doors shut. Or it doesn't matter, because anybody that's ever been up here during the day very much for years, the gym door will be open, the band hall will be open, and they'll be propped open. I mean, there's something against it. Right?
There's a, ABC, we can talk about that, and not make the general public know what.
That's fine.
That's
That's fine. I know. But it doesn't matter if you don't. Dr. Frank.
I agree with you, Dan, that's why I'm sitting here, but I'm not gonna advertise what we might want to talk about doing to them.
Well, this is Mr. Scarborough's campus. How do you feel about that?
Well, I was gonna invite him to be in closed session with us, and talk about there.
Well, are you just asking about just the entrance right here?
Yes, just how does he feel about this? I mean, is that a big help to him?
This part right here,
Does-
Mr. Scarborough, she wants to know how you feel about
This
that.
part right here, do I think it'd be a big help? Absolutely. Yes, we have other issues
Yeah.
that need to be addressed. I mean, one day, Rick and Dr. Adams were great about it. I kind of gave a wish list, if you will, talk to Dr. Adams, and they were down here that afternoon. And one of the things was the entrance. I mentioned these doors and their relative accessibility, but Rick's got someone coming to fix those this week, I think, actually.
Yeah, he's here.
We talked about some options for the doors up in the hallway, and ever since I've been here, yeah, it's been a running problem. The backside, part of that problem, honestly, human problem, and we've worked hard to address that. Rose and I both have. You know, I'd say it's 50-50. Part of it is physical issue, part of it is a human issue. So, yes, I think this would be a big deal. I mean, I think a couple of things. I mean, yes, we know the story, and Bose shared it with all the students last year about the teacher that was smoking. She went outside to smoke, and the shooter saw that and used his way to get in. So yeah, we have some holes in our security based on our own activity. But I think this sends a clear message also to the community of, hey, we're going to beef up some things that we need to beef up. And that is, if someone doesn't study the building correctly, that is a good way to slow down someone coming from the front door.
Similar to what we have done.
It was discussed a few years ago when I was principal, is one thing we talked about, but budget.
Well, I know it's like in the Paris High School, this is what they do there. You go to a window.
And
you
most
don't just walk in.
most schools now, the way they're designed is very similar to that. With a much smaller entrance than what's there, but it funnels people through one area.
Compare. Once the 805 bell rings, I think, is that not right? All the doors locked. You walk into a room, you walk into an office, then they buzz you in.
But, I mean, let's be honest, if I'm an evil person and I'm here to do harm, there's no door that's gonna stop me from getting out of this building.
No.
And that's,
Not argue no.
That's all you can do.
That's right.
now the entrance, it's stone. Basically, you know, as you go on stone, you got pretty much a free roam.
Yeah.
So all of those gym door areas would be locked during the day. I mean, you can obviously get out, but you wouldn't have access in.
Right.
The door would be basically, if I'm looking at stone and I'm looking at the gym doors where I'm going now, there are windows right in front of the office where we would build an entrance right there, so that when you came to the building and have a buzzer too, you would go right to that office window.
That's been talked about for several years. And there had to have a ramp right there because of the height.
Right, that's included.
Did I notice, is there a ramp and it's gonna be, have an awning on it?
Awning for the stone?
Yes.
Have awning?
Yeah, we have to have a handicap ramp, at the new entrance on, with awning.
And is that in this, Rick?
Yes, sir.
I thought I remember seeing that, but I don't see it.
But take in mind, all this is like 4 weeks out if we were to do this, because the material for this job The other one we can start on, but this one will be about 4 weeks out.
I think that's all a good idea.
You need a motion? Yes, sir. Make a motion, we approve
Second.
the front door secure entrances at Stone and the front door secure entrances at Stone, at the high school. I said the high school first.
Stone.
I heard something.
I'm recording, I can play it back.
Have a
Back
motion-
here, take forward.
have a motion by Mr. Richardson, I have a second by Ms. Daughtry to secure the entrances at Stone Middle School and Northmore High School. Any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Thank each and every one of you. Takes us to 6E, consideration approval appraisal calendar for 2018-19 school year.
So this is the appraisal calendar for teachers for the 18-19 school. Just need your approval.
Make a motion to approve the schedule.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Richards, second by Ms. Daughtry. Any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor? 5-0. 6F, consideration approval of appraisers for the 2018-19 school year.
So all Northmore ISD administrators are T-TESS certified, so we just need to make sure y'all approve those appraisals.
Second.
Ms. Daughtry, second by Mr. Richardson. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Takes us to 6G, consideration approval of delegate authority to superintendent to obligate district for chapter 41.
All right, so we are chapter 41 district for 18-19. Because our tax rate is $1.04, our calculations show that we will owe 0 for recapture. But we still have to go through that process. So what we've done is we've gone through the process until to designate us. That's why we have the ability to set the tax, have the ability to set the tax rate tonight, but I still need your blessing to delegate me, and there is a specific motion if somebody wants to do it. The motion's here.
I make a motion for the 2018 school year, we delegate contractual authority to obligate the school district under Texas Education Code TEC 11.1511C4 to the superintendent solely for the purpose of obligating the district under the TEC, Chapter 41, subchapters A and D, and the rules adopted by the Commissioner of Education as authorized under TEC 41.006. This included approval for the agreement for the purchase of attendance credits or the agreement for the purchase of attendance credits, netting Chapter 42 funding. I made the motion. We're gonna let Dr. Adams handle
Well, I
that.
have a second on all of that.
Yeah.
You gotta read that, second.
Second by Ms. Brown.
Oh, I don't know what he said.
Any further discussion, questions, or anything?
I'll trust you on that one.
Take care of
You got all that, young lady?
you. The main thing is we will not owe any money.
That's all I need to know.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Takes us to item 6H, consideration approval resolution regarding 4-H extracurricular status.
So this is an annual procedure where some of our 4-H activities, give that extracurricular exemption to those students instead of involved in those. So I'm just asking you to approve that resolution.
I'll make a motion.
Have a motion by Mr. Trammell, second by Ms. Daughtry. Any further questions, discussion? Being none, all those in favor? Motion carries 5-0. 6I, consideration approval contract with ProTurf.
Again, this is a contract to provide services for the remainder of the year for the district as far as athletic fields and also some other grounds around the district as far as spring grants and
I got some questions on this. I had no, obviously we just did a contract with him to do this, has nothing to do with this person. But I still, it just looks like to me, we could bring this back in-house and save a lot of money.
And I think that ultimately we will have that ability to do that. We just, as of today, we don't,
Why?
because we don't have a licensed individual to do it this time.
My understanding, he only needs one half of the test. I mean, when I'm saying that, we've
I
talked
understand
about this
that.
before.
We're working on that, I mean, but also, I mean, from an equipment standpoint, and chemical standpoint and stuff, I mean, we don't have all that ability right here, right now.
I'll say this, I'll look this up, we're talking about, this is just me, Ricky Richardson. You can buy those chemicals for about $5,000–6,000 tops. Well, so from what I can tell out of this, we may need a little bit of equipment too. That we might have to buy a tractor, look like to need a tractor or something else I can see there. Maybe a spray rig, I don't know if we have one or not. But it sure looks like to me, we could bring this in-house, take care of the taxpayer, and for what we could save, we could almost hire another man to put in the maintenance building. That this person's gonna be looking, by the way I added it, this, you're gonna be working on this about 25, 30 days a year tops. For the rest of the year, he could be working in the maintenance department. As you know, you and I have been talking about this, it has nothing to do with who's doing it. I have no problem with that. This just looks like a way to me, we can take better care of the taxpayer, we can get another employee in the maintenance building, and we're talking about being a little bit shorthanded right there. You're talking about basically 4 times a year, and I don't mean this bad. Did you ever look at the softball field lately? It's bad. I mean, it's bad.
So, I mean, from your standpoint, I mean, is this something that we can make? Something that
How long
we
does it
can
take
make
you to
happen?
get certified?
Well, I've already passed one part, and I'll tell you, it's gotta take the other part. And you can schedule it, it's every 4 to 6 weeks you take the test.
So 4 to 6 weeks, possibly, you could be certified.
Yes, sir. If I pass the other part of the test. Pass the test.
We're in the school of all places, we can help you.
Well,
tutoring?
I don't have, I can pass,
You're
I
at
just
risk.
hadn't took that part. because
K-State.
I left Avery when I went to work for y'all, I was at Avery. The superintendent wanted me to take it back in-house, so
So
I was
Avery
in the
paid for
process.
half of you.
Huh?
Avery paid for half of your test.
Yes.
You paid for the other half.
Yes, it's $100.
It cost us $100.
And me take, well, I gotta drive down there and take a test
Okay.
and drive a school truck.
What kind of equipment do we not have that we need to do this?
Well, we have a sprayer, but we don't have a fertilizer spreader or a decent tractor. Clint and them has worked on the 2 we have the last 2 or 3 weeks, so we can get by in the ag department, because
So if we buy new ones, what kind of money are we talking about?
it just depends on what size and what kind,
What size do we need?
to do everything we need to do.
Yeah.
On those fields, you need a turf tractor first off, or turf tires.
I wouldn't get,
We have a farm tractor,
I
you know,
understand.
so you're looking at 2 different things.
The
The
tractor
spray
is-
rig is.
The tractor's the same, the tires are different.
It is.
yeah, that's the turf tire.
Yeah.
And our tires are not any more expensive than.
I mean, for a new one, you know, a smaller 35 horse, you know, you're looking at probably $20,000.
You know, at least a 35 to 40 horse, something like that to do that kind of
Spray
work.
rig would probably need to be out, you know, it's functional, but it's been around for
Liquid
20
fertilizer?
years. Yeah.
Mhm.
So that way you can use the same spray rig for fertilizer that you can for weeds.
Yes.
Spray for weeds.
That's not on track, that's 300-400.
Yes, sir.
Well, we got a couple of sprayers that I guess have been here. One in particular that I just located a couple of weeks ago that was in the storage behind Clint's office. But I don't know how long it's been here. It had to have new nozzles, that kind of thing.
So what are we thinking about, roughly what a spray rig would cost to put on the tractor that we might have to buy?
A good one, you're talking $3,700.
So now we're talking about spending $30,000 to have enough equipment to take this in out, roughly. And we're guessing we don't have bids, I understand that. I want that to be said.
Right.
You're gonna have, in chemicals now.
I'm talking about equipment,
Okay.
equipment only. We're probably gonna spend $30,000 for a tractor.
Yes, sir.
And that's if we go buy fairly new tractor, that doesn't mean we can't go find a tractor somewhere to teams or something else, right?
Well, we, you know, we need one anyway, but front end loader truck, you know, right now we're using Simwick's front end their skid steer to do that dirt work at the base. We could use it for more than one purpose, but it costs us $30,000 to get into it.
Yeah, and I understand a little bit about tractors. So even having the tractor with the turf tires on it, like we're talking about, we could use that all over the place and we could be using it a lot. So we're not just investing just for this, we're investing for the maintenance department of the tractor, right?
You could keep it busy.
Oh, yeah, we keep it busy, that's not an issue. I mean, we need a tractor every day, our ag department also, they suffer from us not having good equipment. And Clint will tell you, it's not just the equipment's wore out, it's unsafe.
The equipment that we have.
Yes, sir.
So we kind of need to do that anyway, right? In your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I asked for one last year, but Mr. Martin was here, Charlie, and he said that we needed to kind of just make it so we could do better, maybe the budget, but we have money next year to do it. But, you know, we
So
just
for, let's say
tight on
this,
money.
safely guessing $35,000 or less, we could safely buy enough equipment that we could use year round, speaking of a tractor, right?
Yes, sir.
We could use, so what we could potentially save a big part of that the first year we have to use to buy equipment, right?
Well, I mean, yes, sir,
Parts
besides,
of it.
besides the chemicals.
Yes, I'm just talking about for equipment.
Because you're looking, you got 6 times a year that you're gonna be using chemicals in your ryegrass, your winter grass, stuff like that, to hold your grass in place, that kind of thing. So, I mean, that's a cost too. It could average anywhere from $2,800 to $3,400 a year just in chemicals.
I can't remember 4,000 when I called around.
What about, it just depends. I mean, like army worms, if we have them bad that year, then you're talking more money. It's,
Okay, let me ask you this. Have you seen this bid?
I just
What's in front of us?
forwarded it to Dr. Adams. I didn't really kind of.
So the 34,000, if we did this in-house, would you say that we might could save 20,000 a year? Do it in-house?
And give you
Let me
extra
say
help.
this.
After the first year.
After the first
I
year.
mean,
After the first
the
year.
initial year, we're gonna,
Well, that's like anything you take on, it's gonna cost you something up front.
we'd have to get past that first year for us to really see a benefit from it. I mean,
I understand.
you know what I'm saying?
But we're also getting the benefit of a tractor that we can use on other things, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So it's not like, I mean, we just found $600,000, I think we're at the best time we could do that.
A burdened employee is gonna cost you $30,000 a year.
Oh, what now?
A burdened employee,
Well, once you get going through this, you're gonna save 20,000 of it right there.
you're gonna spend more than that on just hiring an employee to help out.
But that employee is going to be doing this, say 25% of the time, 75% of the time. They can
So
be
you're
helping
adding
with
payroll.
work orders that
You're
we're
adding
backed
10
up on.
Tim, you're adding $10,000.
We're not in a position to be adding personnel. We're just hammering for it. Not
We're
adding.
not in a position to spend $35,000 on this when we could be taking care of things ourselves.
I would like to see this being done inside, and if we can't do it, then instead of signing a big contract, pay him on a as-needed basis. If he comes and he sprays, then we pay him for that if we need, if we
It's nothing
can't do
against
it.
him. Nothing against him. I want to be clear. There's nothing against this person. But here's the other thing is there's 2 things I'll say. One, this is the only thing we got, so I don't know whether this is good or bad, really, the reason I started calling around. And 2, I do remember looking at one, we had 2 side by side, and this one was $100,000 higher.
Right, but that was, I mean, that's not apples to apples, I mean, that's complete field replacement.
Scope of work with.
When
And there's,
we were talking about it, we were talking about it as apples
One
to
was,
apples.
one was, well, as reality set in, maybe not, but one was talking about taking the existing field and just checking it off. The other one was talking about building the field up and bringing in, you know, a whole concept. I mean, and if this is the route we want to go, where Rick's folks are taking care of that, but again, we could be a couple of months down the road before all that takes place.
So
I mean, there's
until
gonna be some
then,
needs that have to.
till then, can we not do it need by need basis?
Yeah.
Instead of
Use him for an
signing
ad-need basis and take this back in? I think we're talking, a tractor that we already need sounds like to me. one slick time here that we can afford to buy that tractor right now, that we can use all over the campus. That's what I just heard. To me, we're at a perfect time to do this. And it's something, and then, no, I agree, the first year it's gonna cost us more money. Okay, than this right here. But after that, after we bought the tractor one time, it's just like some of the renovations we've done. Once you've done that and bid it in the bullet, then from year to year, we're talking about $25,000 to $30,000 employees. Is that what I'm talking about?
We're talking $10 to $12 an hour person.
Which you've said several times you could use an extra person.
Oh, yeah. I could
Because
use-
work orders are backed up.
I could tell you a
After
lot
that,
more
if you
on one
save,
person.
if you save $20,000, you're
We
putting
want-
$10,000 on the payroll, you gotta get out for year round.
I'm kind of like Clint, I'm just.
What's it called?
We had 63 work orders today since dinner. And that'll stay that way till around November. And it floats off, and then around January after Christmas, and all our teachers come back and pick right back up
To do this, we're gonna need to hire another employee. Would you agree?
to do the in-house spraying.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, because that person could also, if we're gonna do it that way, because that person could also clean gutters out,
Mhm.
do a lot of things that we're doing now. We have one other guy that,
Which would free up a guy.
yeah, I mean, if
If
we
we
want
hired
to get
this
down
guy
to it,
right
we need
here-
more than one person.
What I'm saying is, I'm asking, if we did this right here, and we hire a guy to do this let's say a month out of the year. It all adds up to a month out of the year. Because some of the spray looks like to me, week or 10 days covered.
You're looking at probably a day and a half on each,
We're
on
talking
6
about 11
trips,
acres.
is what you're looking at.
We're talking about 11 acres.
Sorry.
We're talking about 11 acres, it says right here. 11 and a half
Yeah,
acres.
it's about that, not exactly that, but I mean,
So if we hired a person, $25,000 or $30,000,
Why don't we have to put the numbers to it,
Benefits of it.
instead of just throwing out here in front, and just put a emergent employee and all that, and just see what's gonna actually
I mean,
cost. We're guessing.
what we can do is while we're waiting, if you're willing to go take your test, you can, at the time, period waiting on that, I mean, you'll need to do some stuff.
no, on a case by
To
case, I'm
ensure
fine with it.
that things are taken care of, and then
I don't want to
as we get back to, possibly, it may even be October, November, we can say, hey, here's what a tractor will cost, here's what an additional employee would cost, and go down that path, and start making those.
I don't have a problem doing real numbers. And I don't have a problem using case by case until we get there. Like I said, that's not doing him.
Because I know Mr. Landon's been needing a tractor over there.
I was gonna ask one thing about an area.
we have an irrigator, yes, we got some equipment already. It was here a while, it's been here for years.
I'll make a motion this way,
Yeah.
that we use,
Well, we just need to make a motion to table this.
the motion to table this until the September meeting.
Motion by Mr. Richardson to table.
I'd table it till September, but, I can probably have you some information, but I don't know that, he may not be done with his stuff yet, just to have you those.
What I think I do is he doesn't have to be able to give us numbers for this test.
Dr. Adams, do you think we need to have a special meeting to do this stuff that needs to be done?
I think we can handle it with regular.
On the need.
We can, oh,
You don't need the need to need, it's
No, I
just
think
a.
it
need, you can just.
Yeah,
It doesn't have to be a project.
I don't hold it against the condition.
I want to be clear though and say this, I don't have a problem with this company, that's not it. It's just a way it's like to save money for the taxpayer. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I got a motion by Mr. Richardson to table it. Got a second from Mr. Trout. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, table it. All those opposed, 4-1. Thank you. Takes us to 6J, consideration and approval of donation by the North Lawrence Athletic Booster Club to paint areas at the football stadium.
Okay, so as we talked about, some of those items have already been painted, just need your approval since it is a specific donation.
By the way, that looks really good down there. Lots of comments on that. I move that we accept this donation.
I'll second.
Motion by Ms. Daughtry, favor of accepting the donation? Motion carries 5-0.
Here's my weather man.
Mike, you watching the weather?
Okay, good.
That's a bad right there.
Squall line's coming through.
Okay.
It's pretty rough right now.
6K, consideration approval of updated policy. DEC local.
DEC local is a personnel policy. My recommendation is that we do add 3 days of bereavement to this policy.
Where is it in here?
It's not.
Not at all, because I've read it. and
That's why,
so-
that's
Okay,
our existing policy, it does
Okay.
not exist.
You just,
We haven't had, as we do a draft, we're just saying, if y'all approve it, we can say, hey.
I'll make a motion to accept
noted.
Dr. Adams' bereavement recommendation.
Got a motion by Mr. Richardson, second by Ms. Crabtree. Further discussion? Being none, all those in favor? 5-0.
That'll go in the employee handbook too, correct?
I'll update that as soon as we get the task loaded.
Hey, can I ask a question on that? When we do an update like that for the employee handbook, is that just gonna be online, or is that something they're gonna
It's
have?
online unless the employees have requested a hard copy, and then we'll submit a hard copy of those employees. But they'll get a notification, we'll do a note, just to say, page update.
Okay. Taking the 6L, consideration approval of property value contract.
Okay. So property value contract with Line Barger for this school year. Again, as I told Greg last, our contract with Line Barger last year. Will constitute about an additional $35,000 in revenue for 18-19. From 1998 to 2017, they've given the district an additional around $2.1 million is what they've generated through their services.
So over 9 years, they generated a little over $2 million for us.
Correct.
Motion by Mr. Stone, second by Mr. Richardson. Any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor? 5-0. Consideration approval of 6M, donation of Sandwich for baseball field renovation.
All right, so what Simlic is wanting to do is basically behind the dirt at home plate. It would become AstroTurf, North Lamar Panthers. I don't know exactly what the wording is specifically, but a lot of schools you'll see that. They're wanting to donate from what Aaron's telling me, it's roughly around $10,000 to have that installed. So
A lot of schools are doing that all the way down the baseline and stuff. Is this gonna be something where we can come back maybe and ask that?
when you say
Is
active,
there a way that we can come back and, if we wanted to come back and do it down our baselines, can we do that later?
possibly.
Yeah, we have. I second that.
Mr. Crabtree,
Thanks, Simply too.
second by Mr. Richardson. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 5-0. 6N, consideration approval of policy update for FFAC local.
The update that you have is twofold. They've added some wording. TASB sent out some information from legislative session on unassigned EpiPens. So you'll see that wording where they've added unassigned. We also realized that our wording for EpiPen only said an athletic trainer could administer. So we've updated that, and we've also updated it so authorized and trained individuals can, and also that authorized individuals can administer medication to athletes where we have a parent consent. The way that we had it worded, it was only an athletic trainer or physician. That way, if they're with their coach, we have a parent consent, they can give.
So if the parent gives us consent that a coach can do it,
Yes.
and that's what that says, parent says coach can do it.
Yes. Where it says authorized school personnel is how I think the
So the
parental
nurse,
consent. Right, authorized school personnel.
you get that?
Very good.
I make a
Kobe
motion.
Adams is at a football game and Cole's at a volleyball game and he needs an emergency. I don't know.
No,
Obviously somebody take care of it.
I agree with that. I just want, if you're agreeing with that, it's working, then we're good. I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Richardson, second by Mr. Crabtree. What about, Clint, since you're here, what if something were to go over buses to the youth? Will they be covered if you have a kid?
Do what, sir, now?
If a kid needed an EpiPen, will your bus drivers, are they?
They are not trained in that. That is something that I was gonna talk to the nurse this year to do CPR training. We have to pay
I
for
just
that.
have to think
We
about it
haven't had
when we're
budget.
talking about this right now.
We didn't have that in the budget to do that, but that is something that we're gonna proceed and hopefully get them trained this year. But it may be later in the year before we're able to do that. A few years ago, they started charging, we had to start paying for that service, so it's kind of on a limited basis. But we do have emergency operation procedures that we're putting in place this year, so they'll kind of know how to handle certain things.
Ms. Chadwick, doesn't Chad Helberg do that once a year, give CPR?
We do that here as well.
Yeah, Ms. Weidman.
Training?
We have
Justin
two
Weidman does
nurses.
it for us
Does it?
here.
Okay. I think
But,
Helberg did it for us.
yeah, it costs the district so much per person to do that though. And, I think they started charging 2 years ago or 3. I was principal at the time, so I can't remember when it was, but they started charging, so and that's something we don't have in the budget. Something that's needed though, that we'll move forward with.
All right, no further discussion, all those in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Takes us down to 6-0, consideration approval of North ISD tax rate.
Again, tax rate will remain at $1.04. That's all on the maintenance and operating side. And a motion to approve the ordinance setting the tax rate.
I'd like to make a comment if I'm right. $1.04 is the lowest it can legally be for, correct?
We are at the bottom of the.
Correct.
This is when it's good to be on the bottom.
And we have, and I'd like to say too, that we have 0 for the purpose of the principal and interest because we don't have any debt.
We have zero debt, correct.
I'll make a motion to accept the tax rate.
Motion by Mr.
The dollar.
Richardson, $1.04. Second by Ms. Daughtry. Further discussion? If none, all those in favor? 5-0. Taking us down to item 7, superintendent report.
Hey, really, the biggest thing on the docket for this week is Thursday, so kiddos come back on Thursday, so we're looking forward to a great 18-19 school year. Things are wrapping up on the campuses right now as far as getting some specific things ready and cleaned up. And may still be a few things that we go into the weekend or early next week to finalize some things, but I think that we're in a good position at this point. It's gonna be a good year.
I heard a lot of great things about convocation. A lot of great things. Those who wasn't there, Dr. Adams did an outstanding job.
Appreciate it.
That will take us down to item 8, regular session. The board will conduct a closed meeting in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Chapter 551, subsection C and E. Texas Government Code Section 551.074, personnel matters, appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, resignation, retirement duties, dismissal, complaint, and to discuss purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, safety and security.
Yeah.